Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the LFC Toronto Show. No hyper introduction this week. Of course, I have Jake and Dan. You can tell by the looks on their faces that today is not a good day. Now, before I turn it over to my co-hosts, what I just want to say is we've been so blessed as not just Liverpool fans, but also doing this show. You know, we've spoken about it specifically towards the end of last season, where we really got to almost like diarize our journey of supporting Liverpool through a very successful year. Could have been the most successful year of our club's history. It wasn't in the end, but like week by week, it was amazing. And just before Dan joined us behind, like in the green room, I should say, Jake and I were just saying that on episode 1, Dan just threw a comment out there to say, we're going for the quadruple, and really that materialized into the next 4 or 5 months. And the only defeat we suffered in that time was Inter Milan in the second leg. And that was, we were already through in a way. After that, we really didn't lose until the final. We didn't do a podcast after the final just because, you know, I was in Paris. You folks were probably not in game mode after the day that was. And yet 4 months after that, here we find ourselves on September the 7th, and we might be like now chronicling something completely different just based on how these first few weeks are going. So I'm going to take it in turn to go to both of you. Jake, how are you feeling after Napoli 4, Liverpool 1 in the Diego Maradona Stadium?
I think that, you know what, Napoli did whatever what they need to do. Like they do have, I mean, they're top of the table in the
second
in San Siro. So I'm sorry, in the Italian league, but
yeah,
they do have a good squad, and you know, the problem is that we didn't take them for granted, but for whatever reason, tactically speaking, we're never going to know the nuance of this. Is the folks that started this match for us and played the way they did, you know, they didn't show up today, or some of the squad didn't show up today, or they had issues in the match. And, you know, I don't think Napoli did anything like out of the ordinary. They just played their decent game. Did we like make them look better? I don't know. That's for a discussion point. But more so that, like, you know, I think that we're, because of our, I have to say the injury bug. You know, my hope was that we just kind of skate along until we can get some of those reinforcements back. And I'm not talking about January, because January is, you know,
miles away. Yeah.
World Cup, with the World Cup window, all that kind of shit. But more so, I was just hoping that, because that's just Liverpool dynamic. But in looking at the Prem itself, you know, in going through the 99 points and 90, you know, all that stuff, I think how the Prem is shaping up this year, it's going to be it could be in the high 70s, maybe 80s to win the league. I think, given the form and the dropped points already within the first month. But I think that you know, I really do feel with, like, okay, the Millie one with the handball, that was pretty shitty at the beginning, and you know, that happened. The Van Dijk one, okay, that happened right after, which is another, like, okay, and then you have Ali saving the penalty. You have, it just was and then it was just a kind of a circus of errors. Like, I feel really bad for, okay, fine, Millie was thrown into the gauntlet. You know, Virgil had a shitty game. He's had a shitty season so far, I think, by his standards. And then I really feel bad for Joe Gomez, because, you know, he's playing, you know, sparingly, and then he made some really, like, simple, in my thought, like, mistakes. He could have cleared it out. I don't know if he didn't anticipate the pace is he Georgian or is he?
Yeah,
wherever?
Georgian.
I don't even know how to pronounce his name, but he's a baller. That kid's a baller. But nevertheless, like, did he not anticipate the pace? Did he not, like, and the headlines would be like, you know, he's the Maradona of, I'm going to say the Carpathians, but whatever the region is in that context. But, you know, he just had a poor game. And the problem is that, like, now Matip's fit again. He's not going to get another game until the cup or this cup and whatever else. And so from a Joe Gomez, you know, I like him. We've signed him for another several years, but he's just not been, you know, he made some like really poor decisions today. And as a result, we got behind very fast, and we just didn't have any connection points between the team. And it was really, really, you know, tough to watch as a fan because we're not used to losing. And, you know, this isn't bittersweet for us in terms of like, you know, we're not crying spilled milk, but it is hard for us right now to watch what we watched today and to experience this, because we haven't felt this for, as you're saying, is as like a shit ton of time. I don't know, Dan, like I can cry and cry and cry, but you know, today was a tough day essentially at the office.
Yeah, I do concur. I think Zaz, I think you set it up really nicely. I feel it's you know, how we started off the show, right, with the quadruple talk and how it was just building right from the get-go of last season, and competing with City, competing with some great teams, playing Real in the final. I felt that the biggest sort of thing that came out of last season was that it felt like an end of an era, so to speak, because, and when I say era, I don't mean like the Klopp era or anything like that. I meant like really the sort of curtain on his first team, like, you know, sort of that those first 3, 4, 5 years. And it's not just Sadio leaving. It's not. It sort of reminded me a lot of like the '98 Bulls, you know, where you had, you know, MJ and Scotty and, you know, and all the dynamics there with Phil Jackson. And it wasn't one of those. I mean, obviously our ownership is not like Jerry Krause and Ryan Stormford and stuff like that. But anyway, for those Bulls fans like Perez, my son. Anyway, but it felt like that. It felt like a bit of closure, and we were still successful. I think you're right. But it felt that this season, especially, we've carried the lethargy, if you want to call it that, or we've carried the hangover really of what that was. And that was such an emotional roller coaster, if you will. It took a lot out of the fan base as well, not just the players, obviously the players, and you can see it in the players, right? And I feel the the off-season tour didn't help, you know, coming back, going to Asia, in a lot of squads. Jurgen's big on the prep, right, in terms of, you know, training in Europe and in Spain and things like that. So I think a lot of those things have caught up. There's been some untimely stuff as well, you know, like the red card, the injuries, like you mentioned. There's a lot of, I hate to use this because it sounds very existential, but it's like there's a lot of circumstances around the team right now, and whether they're good, bad, there's more negative than positive. And whereas last year everything was generally positive, aside from the end of it. And so I hope we snap out of it. I have full confidence that we will. Going away to Napoli, like you guys know, is not an easy task anyway. So if you just boil it down to that, it's one match and we go on. And look, the one thing that you can always probably take from post-game stuff when there's a bad loss or there's an emotional result, all that kind of stuff, is Jurgen's response, right? He always gives his all, and he'll calm the fan base down. But tonight, he just, you know, he said, like, we need to reinvent ourselves. And I think that ties it all together, which is we've come on this massive journey. We need to learn sometimes as fans that we can't win all the time. Like, it's just not possible to win every single match.
We can't win all the time.
I know. And so it's not a God-given right. And so I think we've been spoiled. And I think with the closure of that first team, it's sort of, now we're in that, I hate to use the transition thing because I know it was talked about in the media this past week and whatnot, but it is really a transitory time. Because if you look at the squad as well, you have youth, and then you have, like, you know, not youth, essentially some of the aging squad. And so
experience,
we need that little bit of, and so I think that's where we are. And I think today was a bit of a wake-up call. What probably alarmed me in this last point on this is like our energy, right? And you can see it. We were just sapped out of it. And I've never seen Mo play like that, which is, he's always at it, like no matter what. He prides himself. There was something there that was missing. So what do you think, Azaz?
Firstly, I do think Napoli were really good. I think one of you were just you. Like, I think the arena is hard. They can smell fear. They can smell when a team isn't at it. They're reinvented themselves. You know, different teams at different like trajectories. I think for us, it's twofold. I think like I agree with the general vibe right now, which is we just also have to embrace this process right now because, well, for the most part, we have no control or no say on it anyway. Like we have to embrace it for what it is. But the second part, I think, as well, is a week is a long time in football. You know, a month is a lifetime in football, and we can turn this around really quickly. And we have to do that and have to like get it done now. And you know, Klopp's Liverpool, when it's needed to do it, has done it. You know, I think we all think back to like 17, 18, but like it was actually the first week of October when we lost 4-1 at Wembley to Tottenham, and that's really where the run started from. And I remember like I was still working at the job I was two jobs ago, and I used to get to travel quite a bit. And I just remember like making a point of making sure I was watching all the games, and one by one the wins were racking up, you know, and like we were starting to see like Mo was special and blah blah blah. Like I think that. And that season as well, 17-18, also started with Sadio getting suspended for 3 games. And he was our star player at the time because of 16-17. And a bit different because Darwin's not our star player, but he was our big signing. So like we have had previous of this, and we can't really throw it all away or throw it all out. That's what I think. But what I do also think is there are things on the pitch that do need to be addressed. And I don't think that fans are wrong in voicing some of those. I think to just lean on FSG and all these things at this point is unnecessary because it can't fit. But then, you know, if somebody sees a performance or like, you know, any of those things, like I do think, like, you know, I think everybody knows that Salah's my favorite player, but like he's not performing. And if anyone wants to go at him or any of that stuff, they're well within their rights. Like it's I think for me, there's four of them: Trent, Virgil, Fabinho, and Mo are able to pull us out of this. Like therefore, at their I was going to say at their best. No, they're 4 world-class players just not playing world-class at the moment.
Absolutely.
If that 4 plus Ali, who's world-class and playing like it, and Diaz, who's borderline world-class. I don't know if he's reached that height yet, but like, so then that's 6. That's 6, right? I think Matip is flawless anyway, like for the most part. So that becomes so suddenly you start to see like there's a big group of players now that can pull us out of this. And then you can have like 2 or 3 people, like we're bedding Darwin in, or like Harvey's young or Carvalho's young. I think the big thing at the moment is there's that group of players who are world class. I'm not going to change my opinion on that because there are form. Form is temporary, class is permanent. But I do think but I do think that that's a bit of a problem right now. That's what we're suffering from. And maybe that's one of the things. The other 2 things I just very quickly say is Jurgen knows way more about football than I ever will. But like, I think maybe now a formation change might be worth it because it's worked for other teams before. Like I know Conte actually won a league. I think his first Chelsea league, he just went to 3-5-2 and they went on this run and no one could catch them. So that's one. And then the second thing I do think as well that might be worth doing at this point is being a bit more pragmatic, because if we are blunt and we are not creative, cool. Like, you know what? Like, it's about time. Like we've been scoring for fun for like 5 years. Suddenly, if we are a bit blunt, but we can't be blunt and soft, you know, like this. Yeah.
No, I absolutely agree with that. I just want to tag on to that point where it was discussed, and Kara has been on social media, and also on CBS after the match, right? Stating how the failure in this game, and you could even say for the majority of the season for Liverpool, it's been one like the finishing aside, we sort of know that already, but beyond the finishing is the pressure and the press, right? So if we're playing a high line, and it's good to play high line, like a lot of teams play high lines, but if you're not putting pressure on the ball, like that leaves you very, very open, and you sort of saw that here, and that's where I feel we've really regressed. Like we haven't pushed on. I was having a few chats with the mates at the pub, and they were saying, and the point was that if you think about Liverpool 16, 17 to now, or to last season, it's been a bank of three, like up front. There's been another three behind that, and then there's like obviously our back four and Ali. And so, but that first six were really compact pressure. And the thing is, it's not creative mids generally. Aside from Thiago recently, it's the Genies, it's the Hendos, it's the Fabs. Those type of players are the ones to essentially, like as soon as said, basically release the hounds, right? Get on them, like sort of hound the other team and win the ball back. And you saw what happened when Thiago came on. He started winning the ball back, and when you win the ball back up high, you automatically create chances for Mo, for Diaz, and so that's what's missing. And on the other side of the ball, if that compactness or range is not there, then that leaves Joe, Virgil, even the fullbacks vulnerable, right? Because if you're not having that much pressure on the ball, those spaces are being carved up by the opposing team, and so it's like a two-pronged thing. And to be fair to Hendo and Fab and Thiago, I guess, as well, but I mean, Genie prior, it's like, to be in our midfield means you need to be at the absolute peak of your athletic prowess and conditioning and everything else. And honestly, I will never hate on Hendo. I will never hate on Fab for the 5 years they've given us, or 4 or 5 years, whatever that is, because they put in shifts, like big time shift, giving it everything, and come back in matches like Barcelona and everything. So it's like we've seen that. It's just that now, can we get that going forward? And if we can't, that's where I think a lot of our fan base says, well, FSG, Julian Ward, what have you done to sort of support our strategy going forward? Because if we can't replicate that sort of form in the mid going forward, because we know what we had, why not bring in replacements that can actually do that? And I think we were trying to do that with Caicedo, or with Tushimeni, or whatever his name is, Chouameni. But yeah, that's what I think. I feel like we're really lacking that middle of the park bite. I think Thiago will help, but we need more.
I think that on that context, I think what is a very interesting dynamic, and for whatever reason it's not on this year, is that full back on either side, and the connection between that adjacent front person, whether that's in this case Diaz and Mo, whatever that connection point is, it has not been there. And I'm not displacing the midfield dynamic, because that is a huge. They win the ball, they get that, they go. But for whatever reason, that connectivity between the backs and the forwards has not been like it was in the last several years. And so they're having to fight now. And like, so that premise of Mo being like, oh, he's playing too wide. I'm sure he was playing wide for the last couple of years, and nobody gave a shit, because the ball was coming to him in the timely fashion, giving to him in space, and he could do his 1v1s or whatever else. But I think that connectivity, for whatever reason, has just not been there. And I'm going to say that's partly due to the midfield and the injuries. And I don't know if, like, Simi came in the other day. I know we were hoping for Ramsey to come in and dispel as well. It's to give a break. And it's hard to say, like, give a break in the first month of the year, because it's the first month of the year. How much footy have they played? Agreed. But I just missed that connection point. I just haven't seen it yet. I'm not saying it won't come. For me, it hasn't been there. So as a result, every single person in your saying that top six has had to work that much harder, because I'm missing that.
Compensate. Yeah,
clearly. But
I agree with that. If you look at we gave Harvey a lot of praise. I think, he deserved it actually, especially the Newcastle match and stuff like that. But I feel even him and Carvalho, obviously he's not in, but the two of them, starting Harvey is interesting because he does provide that creative spark and we need that. But the thing is, does that also leave you open, right? I mean, like so there's a couple of things. Fab is generally not at his best. Like right now, I would say like he's up there. He still makes tackles here and there, but he's not at his best. Beside him was Milner today, and I know there's a lot of hate and heat on him, but again, he's starting. You have to give him at least that sort of respect if Klopp's picking him, then he's starting for a reason. But he's also a bit of a step behind, right, in terms of closing it out and not making the rash tackles, because he could be picking up that yellow really, really quick, and then it's like tough, right, to manage that throughout the whole match. Yeah. And then Harvey, who's great, but the thing's off the ball. Is he conditioned enough to get into challenges? Yes, he is. But I always go back to this. I don't know if you notice this. We sort of struggle on big pitches. I know we've, if you look in the PL, there's a lot of obviously bigger pitches, like the Emirates or at the Etihad, but we struggle in those bigger pitches. Like today at the Diego Maradona, like it was like a big pitch, and we were done in last time too, which means that you have to work, you have to run as like more than what you would do, let's say in Anfield or a compact pitch like Goodison or something like that. I know that's a small thing, it's a small little thing, but you need to have those energy levels up, and I think we're lacking that. And that's just adding to big pitches is not the reason why we lost, but it's a contributing factor as to why this team is just very much not clicking, because we just don't have the energy right now. Mental exhaustion, physical exhaustion from the carryover from last season. But yeah, what do you think it's us? I mean, is there another factor here that we're missing?
No, I do think it's a combination of all of these things. Like, I don't think it's one thing in particular. I think we can definitely talk about the squad depth and replacements and that we can definitely go into that in a different direction, maybe in the international break or something. I think form is huge. I think the players, especially the ones I mentioned before, like they have a lot of responsibility to them, because again, just carrying the analogy on from before, with the 98 Bulls, like you knew who was bringing it, right? Like if the other people didn't bring it, sure, like we can make up for that,
who was like, the big dogs.
Who's who's bringing it. And the thing is, at the moment is, we lost Sadio, who was a world-class player, but we didn't really lose anybody else. Like it's one of those where Genie was 2 years ago, Genie went, so that's different.
I would push back on that a little bit in that, and not the Sadio thing, but just the like I would say Thiago being one, but Hendo being injured, just that sort of mentality. Joel being missing for a few matches, and it's just like it seems like there's a bit of a lack of confidence at the end of the day, right? Like it's like where I thought we would maybe turn the corner was after United. The notion of like reading those headlines, right? Because these guys have like immense pride, right? Like they, like Van Dijk and Trent and stuff. Like they're on IG, they're putting out like great thoughts and everything, very, very confident vibes, and they're doing commercials and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it affects you. It affects you as a professional footballer when everything else is going well, like you're getting all the commercial stuff, whatever. But if the results on the pitch don't add up, it's going to affect your psyche and your confidence and everything else. And what was funny was that after the 9-0 at Bournemouth, or after Bournemouth, I just thought it would be like sort of, okay, we've flicked the switch and then boom, we're going to be at it. And it seems like we're back and forth in this sort of like confidence vortex, if you want to call it that. And what's interesting is that like even Trent's body language, Mo's body language, it's apparent, and you can, and even Van Dijk as well. Like you're seeing a little bit more unrest, a little more chattiness on the pitch. Like do this, do that. I mean, Milner's going to bark out orders anyway. Hendo's going to do that anyway. But you're seeing a lot of that. And even Robbo in the post match, I mean, you're getting like those comments saying, sorry, sorry to the fans. We should be more at it. We should take it on ourselves. Like that tells me that not everyone is like really like sort of focused in here. As much as you want to say like we're focused and we train well, yeah, we do. But there are a lot of other things that play here. And it feels like there's a whole myriad of things coming into that. Another thing I just want to say really quickly is that, Klopp also deserves some blame for this. And I know everyone just wants to say, oh, it's Jurgen. And yes, I'm the biggest Jurgen fan around, I feel. But the one thing I would say is that, and maybe this is not his fault, because again, it's the cards he's dealt, but he did say it in a preseason press conference or before the season started, which was, we have so much of midfield depth, right? We have, blah, blah, blah. We have Naby, we have Curtis, we have Harvey, we have Thiago, Hendo, Milner, Fabs. The thing is that like 5 out of those 7 are injured. And whether we like it or not, whether timeliness, whatever, they're injured. So what do you do at that point? And then when you're forced to start with Carvalho and Elliott, and yeah, it's at home or whatever, you're still vulnerable. And Milner as well. And I hate to say that, but I would have liked to see him actually start a Basic or someone like that, just to see what he would what he could give. I think that would have been a gutsy shout, but I mean, I thought he showed himself pretty well in the cameos that he's had. So anyway, but that being said, we'll take the L and move on, right?
I'm just looking at the clock. It looks like we only have some short time left, which is fine. I don't know if we need to. It's also late, and it's been Riley's first day at school. It's Jake was on a patio a couple of hours ago. So yeah, let's just wrap this up here. Hopefully we'll meet in more happy circumstances after the Ajax game next week. But yeah, I feel like this was still a bit therapeutic and cathartic. As always, we're just going to try and keep up with everything that's happening. But before we go, quick one, 10-second prediction. What's happening at Wolves? Jake, you first.
I'm hoping for a 2-0 shit. I don't know who's going to show up and what's going to happen, but I'm really, really hoping for a 2-0.
Dan?
I think we'll win. I think we'll be reading the headlines, and Klopp will be getting it. The whole squad will be getting it. So I think we'll come out with some energy, and that's all we need, energy.
So score?
I'd say 3-1. We still leak goals. But we're gonna bust out. Diogo's gonna have to.
Yeah. Dan. Zazu time. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm going 2-0 too, but I'm going to wrap this up because it's saying less than a minute. So 2-0. We're out. Bye.